What would you do if a homeless man walked into your restaurant, begging not for money, but for a simple meal? Would you ignore him? Ask him to leave? Or would you show him kindness? On a chilly autumn night, one small restaurant owner faced that very choice. But what she didn't know was that the man standing in front of her wasn't just another hungry stranger. He was one of the most famous CEOs in the world, testing humanity in its rawest form. And what happened that night shocked the entire planet. But before we get to that moment, let's rewind to understand who this man really was and why he decided to hide everything he owned to become someone society often overlooks. His name was Jonathan Hale. To the world, Jonathan was a symbol of success, founder and CEO of a multi-billion-dollar tech empire. Magazines called him the genius of his generation. His company's sleek devices and cutting-edge software weren't just changing industries, they were changing lives. But behind the glass towers and private jets, Jonathan carried a secret most people never knew. He wasn't born rich. Far from it. Jonathan had grown up in a working-class neighborhood, where his mother juggled 3 jobs just to keep food on the table. He remembered cold winters with no heating, nights when dinner was nothing more than day-old bread, and days he went to school in shoes with holes at the bottom. He knew what it meant to feel invisible, to have people look past him, or was look down on him. That childhood experience never left him. As he climbed the ladder of success, Jonathan often thought about those struggling at the very bottom of society. But he also noticed something disturbing. The richer he became, the less people treated him like a person. Everywhere he went, people were polite, respectful, eager to impress him. And Jonathan began to wonder, were they truly kind? Or were they only kind because of his money? One evening, sitting alone in his penthouse with the city lights glowing below, Jonathan came across a viral video. It showed a man in rags asking for help on the street, ignored by dozens of people, until one stranger stopped and offered him food. The clip struck a nerve. Jonathan couldn't shake a question that burned in his mind. If I looked homeless, if I stripped away the wealth, the fame, the power, how would people treat me? The idea began as a spark, but soon turned into a plan. He would disguise himself, tear his clothes, grow a beard, hide his identity, and walk into a place where kindness could be tested, a local restaurant. Would people show him compassion, or would they push him away? Jonathan decided it had to be real. No hidden cameras, no special treatment. If someone chose to help him, it had to be from the heart. Over the next week, Jonathan worked with a small, trusted team. A Hollywood makeup artist helped create a look so convincing that no one would recognize him. His clean-shaven face grew into a scruffy beard. His neatly tailored suits were swapped for thrift store jackets full of holes. His polished shoes were replaced by worn sneakers with frayed laces. When he looked in the mirror, even he barely recognized himself. He no longer looked like the billionaire tech icon splashed across magazine covers. He looked tired, beaten down, forgotten. The transformation wasn't just physical, it was emotional. Jonathan spent hours walking the streets in disguise, sitting on park benches, even standing outside busy shops. What he experienced stunned him. People averted their eyes. Some crossed the street to avoid him. Others muttered under their breath, assuming he was an addict, a beggar, a nuisance. Very few actually treated him like a human being. Each day, Jonathan's heart grew heavier. He realized just how invisible society could make the poor feel. After days of wandering, Jonathan finally chose a place where he would carry out his experiment. It was a small, family-owned restaurant tucked between 2 tall office buildings. The kind of place where regulars came for warm meals and familiar faces. The restaurant was called Maria's Kitchen, named after the woman who owned and ran it. Jonathan had passed it several times before. He noticed something about the place. It wasn't fancy, but it radiated warmth. The lights glowed softly, the windows fogged from steaming plates of food, and the laughter of families spilled onto the sidewalk. It felt human. That night, Jonathan made up his mind. He would go inside Maria's kitchen. He would ask, not for money, but for a meal. And then he would see, how would the owner and the customers respond? It was nearly closing time when Jonathan pushed open the door to the restaurant. The smell of roasted chicken and garlic filled the air. Inside, a handful of customers lingered. Office workers finishing late dinners, couples sharing dessert, a small family with 2 children laughing over bowls of soup. The moment Jonathan stepped inside, the atmosphere shifted. Conversation slowed. Heads turned. His jacket was tattered, his shoes stained, his face shadowed with exhaustion. He looked completely out of place among the well-dressed customers. Jonathan walked slowly toward the counter. His stomach growled, though in truth, he wasn't starving. He had eaten earlier, but he wanted to feel the vulnerability, the desperation of asking for help. The cashier, a young waitress in her 20s, frowned slightly. Sir, we're about to close," she said cautiously. Jonathan lowered his eyes, his voice soft. I don't have any money, but if there's anything left, maybe some bread or scraps, I'd be grateful. I'll work for it if you want." The waitress hesitated. A couple at the corner table whispered to each other. One man in a business suit scoffed and muttered loudly, "Great, just what we need." Another beggar. Heat rose in Jonathan's chest, but he stayed silent. This was exactly what he had come to see. From the kitchen door, a woman emerged, wiping her hands on an apron. She was in her 50s, with tired eyes but a gentle smile. This was Maria, the owner. She noticed the tension in the room, the way customers were staring at Jonathan. Stepping forward, she looked at him closely. His clothes were ragged, his hands rough, his eyes weary. Maria could have told him to leave. She could have said the kitchen was closed. She could have ignored him, like so many others already had. But instead, she asked a simple question. "Are you hungry?" Jonathan looked up, surprised. "Yes, very." For a moment, the room was silent. Customers waited, some expecting her to throw him out, others curious to see what she'd do. Maria studied his face for a long second. Then she nodded. "Sit down. I'll bring you a plate." As Jonathan moved toward the table, the reactions were immediate. The man in the suit rolled his eyes. "Seriously? You're going to feed him? He doesn't even belong here." The couple by the window whispered again, shaking their heads. The young waitress looked uneasy, as if she was torn between following the owner's lead or worrying about other customers' complaints. Jonathan sat quietly, hands folded, heart pounding. He had expected rejection, but Maria's kindness, it startled him. Still, he knew this was only the beginning. Maria disappeared into the kitchen, leaving murmurs swirling among the customers. Some were judgmental, others just confused. And Jonathan sat there, waiting, wondering how. As Maria returned with a plate of steaming food in her hands, the restaurant seemed to hold its breath. Would she really serve a homeless man in front of everyone? Would she stand by a decision, even if it risked angering her paying customers? Jonathan watched closely, his disguise still intact. This was a moment that would reveal more about humanity than any business meeting, any fortune, or any deal he had ever made. And in just a few seconds, Maria was about to make a choice that would change both of their lives forever. Maria set the plate gently on the table. A steaming portion of chicken stew, a slice of bread, and a small glass of water. The restaurant grew quiet. You could feel the weight of everyone's eyes on her. Jonathan whispered, "Thank you." Maria smiled softly. "No one should go hungry, not in my restaurant." But before Jonathan could take his first bite, a voice broke the silence. The businessman in the corner slammed his fork down. "This is ridiculous. We're paying customers, and you're serving them." He gestured at Jonathan with disgust. "If you start feeding every beggar who walks in, soon this place will be crawling with them." A murmur of agreement rippled through the room. The couple by the window nodded. Even the young waitress shifted nervously, glancing at Maria as though unsure if she was making a mistake. But Maria didn't flinch. She placed a hand on the table and said firmly, "This man asked for food, and I have food to give. That's all that matters." The businessman stood, adjusting his expensive tie. Kindness is one thing, but this is bad for business. If word gets out, people will think this is a soup kitchen, not a restaurant. You will lose customers. Maria crossed her arms, her voice steady but calm. "Sir, with all due respect, I didn't open this place just to make money. I opened it to feed people. Sometimes that means more than profit." Jonathan lowered his head, his heart pounding. He hadn't expected her to defend him so fiercely. The businessman scoffed, grabbed his coat, and stormed toward the door. "You'll regret this. People don't pay for food in places like this." The door slammed behind him. A heavy silence filled the room. Maria turned back to Jonathan and said gently, "Go ahead, eat." Jonathan lifted the spoon, tasting the warm stew. The flavor was rich, comforting, made not just with ingredients, but with care. He hadn't realized how emotional this moment would be. He had eaten at five-star restaurants, dined with presidents and kings. But somehow, this humble meal meant more than all of them combined. Maria sat across from him, watching quietly. After a moment, she asked, "What's your name?" Jonathan hesitated. He couldn't reveal the truth. Not yet. So he said softly, "John." "Well, John," Maria said, "you're welcome here. Anytime." Not everyone was convinced. At the family table nearby, a woman whispered to her husband, "I don't like this. What if it's dangerous?" Her husband replied, "He looks harmless, but still, it's strange." The waitress approached Maria cautiously. "Are you sure about this? If more people like him come, we can't afford to give food away." Maria looked at her and said quietly, "Sometimes doing the right thing costs something, and that's okay." Jonathan felt a lump in his throat. He had expected rejection, cruelty, maybe indifference. But here was a woman standing up not just for him, but for kindness itself. As Jonathan finished the meal, he looked at Maria and said, "Why? Why help me? You don't know me. You don't know what I've done." Maria leaned back, her eyes soft but firm. "When I was younger, I didn't have much either. There were nights I went hungry. But one person, just one stranger, gave me food when I needed it most. And I promised myself, if I ever had the chance, I'd do the same for someone else." Jonathan stared at her. Her words cut deep, pulling at memories of his own childhood, memories of hunger, of his mother's sacrifice, of neighbors who sometimes looked the other way. Maria continued, "People forget that behind every face, no matter how dirty or tired, there's a story. And sometimes, the smallest kindness can change everything." Rain began to patter against the restaurant windows. Outside, the street was nearly empty. Inside, the atmosphere shifted. The judgmental whispers quieted. Even the family who had been nervous now watched silently as though reconsidering their first impressions. Jonathan sipped the last of his water and looked at Maria. "You didn't just feed me," he said softly. "You reminded me that people can still care." Maria smiled faintly. "That's all I ever wanted this place to be. Not just a restaurant. A reminder." But as Jonathan sat there, a storm of emotion brewed inside him. He wanted to tell her everything, that he wasn't truly homeless, that he was worth billions, that this was all a test. Yet part of him feared the truth. Would she be disappointed? Would she feel betrayed? He glanced at his hands, roughened by makeup and dirt, and thought, what if she only helped me because she believed I was poor? What if revealing myself ruins everything? His heart raced. This was the moment he had been waiting for. But now that it was here, he wasn't sure he could go through with it. The waitress returned to clear the plate. As she did, Jonathan's sleeve slipped slightly, revealing the edge of an expensive watch hidden beneath the ragged jacket. Maria noticed. Her eyes flickered for a moment, but she said nothing. Instead, she studied him more closely. Something about his posture, his tone, his words, didn't quite match the image of a man beaten down by life. Maria asked quietly, "Who are you really, John?" Jonathan froze. His disguise had held up all night, but now, under her gaze, it began to crack. The rain outside turned into a heavy downpour. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Inside, the restaurant was nearly empty now. Only a few customers remained, watching curiously as Maria leaned close to Jonathan. "You're not telling me the whole truth, are you?" she whispered. Jonathan swallowed hard. His hands trembled. Slowly, he reached up and began to peel at the edge of the fake beard. The glue tugged at his skin, the disguise starting to come away. Maria gasped softly, her eyes widening. The waitress froze mid-step, staring. Jonathan looked around the room one last time. The customers leaned forward, sensing something extraordinary was about to happen. He took a deep breath, his voice low but steady. "There's something you need to know about me." And with that, he pulled hard at the disguise, revealing the first glimpse of the man beneath. Maria's hand flew to her mouth. The waitress dropped a plate that shattered against the floor. The room filled with stunned silence as Jonathan began to lift the mask of who he had pretended to be. But before he could reveal his full identity, the screen fades to black. Jonathan removes the disguise fully. Maria and the remaining customers realize they are sitting across from one of the most famous CEOs in the world. Shock, confusion, disbelief. Jonathan explained why he did it. His backstory, testing kindness, lessons from his childhood. Maria is stunned but not impressed by his wealth. She challenges him. "You didn't need to be poor to know people need kindness." Emotional dialogue. She speaks about values of dignity and humanity. This makes Jonathan reflect even more. News reporters arrive. Jonathan had a secret security team nearby tracking him. Customers start recording on phones. Word spreads online in real time. Jonathan offers Maria something, either financial help or a chance to expand her mission. The story explodes online and across news outlets. Maria becomes an overnight symbol of compassion. Jonathan faces praise, but also criticism for playing homeless. Maria receives a mysterious invitation from Jonathan to attend a private meeting that could change everything, but we don't hear what it is yet. Subscribe and follow for more interesting stories.